Hello, I am Priyadarshini Karve. I am the director of Samuchit Envirotech, a social enterprise based in Pune and working with the motto Enabling Sustainability. I am also currently the national convener of Indian Network on Ethics and Climate Change, or INEC. Our motto is People's Voices in Policy Choices. This is the third episode of the series. Let's try some thought experiments. Links to the previous episodes are in the description, and links to the future episodes will be added as and when new videos are made. One system that is very much under pressure in this lockdown period is the food supply chain. The food producers are lamenting that they are not able to sell their produce and the prices have crashed. The consumers are lamenting that they are not getting foodstuffs and the prices are high. Processed foods, flours, dals, spice mixes, bakery products, ready-to-eat foods, etc., are also in short supply. Obviously, there are some serious problems with the food supply chain. For the fresh produce, the problems are lack of labor for harvesting, loading and unloading, availability and cost of transport from farm to market, and from wholesale market to retailers. For example, the delivery vehicle has to return empty from the delivery point and therefore will charge double. For the processed foods, in addition to the challenges in getting all the ingredients and distribution of the products, there is also the challenge of lack of skilled labor for operating the processing units. And all this is besides the huge challenge of strictly adhering to the norms of physical distancing and hygiene that the pandemic has imposed on us. What kind of a system can be put in place to avoid such problems in food supply chains in future disasters? I envisage a network of decentralized aggregation and distribution centers for the fresh produce. These units also can double as food drying and processing units. Such units need to be spread throughout the rural areas where most of the food production is happening currently. Add on to this a chain of cold storage units spread across rural areas and at city level across municipal wards. These units should be appropriately sized based on the total population to be serviced in their area of reach. The energy supply for the food aggregation and processing as well as cold storage units should be a hybrid of grid power or fossil fuel and a locally accessed renewable energy source. The individual units may be owned and operated by local micro enterprises, farmer producer companies, self-help groups, cooperative societies, etc. Basically, locally owned and operated. This network must be coordinated through a food supply chain federation or any other suitable administrative structure with co-ownership of everyone in the chain. The government should play an enabling role by providing the technology support and financing support for setting up of this network. Such a system will ensure that at least a week's supply of various types of cold stored foods will be available to every population cluster at any given point in time. Under normal circumstances, the supply of unprocessed or processed food in the market as well as for ration shops and government food programs should be through this system. Priority should be given to selling of the stored rather than newly received foods, but within the expiry dates. Information technology can play a key role in this process of deciding whether an item should be sold off or continued to be stored. This will ensure that the cold storages don't end up holding foodstuffs that are years old and therefore can no longer be consumed safely if and when a disaster strikes. The current stakeholders in the food supply chain should be made partners in this system. This is not an entirely new idea. Germans promoted food drying on each and every agricultural farm during the First World War in anticipation of food shortages due to a potential blockade of food imports into the country. The dried food was then stored safely in warehouses spread across the country and thus was available as emergency rations to the entire population and the armed forces through the war years. What I am proposing is also similar to the very successful model followed by milk cooperatives in India. You aggregate the produce from producers spread in your area, process it, and supply the processed products across the country. And all this is through a cooperative company owned by the producers and run by hired professionals. The setting up of Amul is a good case study to analyze and replicate with suitable modifications for other farm produce. It is ironical that several of the bottlenecks in the supply chain are linked with lack of labor force. The way this lockdown unfolded in the chaotic first few days, the migrant laborers that keep the societal lifelines running under normal circumstances were led to believe that there is no work left for them in the lockdown. In panic, they literally walked away from their livelihoods, couldn't adhere to the physical distancing and isolation norms, and are now under forced isolation or quarantine at various locations where they have no work. And at the same time, the supply chains of all essential goods are struggling due to lack of labor force at various points in the chain. Every city, town, village needs to develop a plan for implementing lockdowns of this nature, which will address all the management failures of the COVID-19 lockdown. The plan must be sensitive to the needs and roles of all sections of the society in the population cluster, and suitable awareness raising and training should be carried out for different stakeholder groups. This cannot be a one-off effort but needs to be a continuous process. With this type of preparation, everyone in the community will know what they need to do for their own safety and for the smooth functioning of the local systems during such a situation. And a lot of unnecessary panic, chaos, and suffering will be avoided. Some people might be thinking that what is happening today is an extraordinary situation. It has happened for the first time in a couple of generations. Surely this won't happen again anytime soon. Aren't all these preparations a bit too drastic? Let me remind you of something that I mentioned at the very beginning of this discourse. This is the first global pandemic of this century. Many more will come, along with many other disasters, which will lock us down under similar or even worse conditions. The effort and money spent on such preparations will definitely be worthwhile. I am just presenting my first take attempt at a solution. Your comments, suggestions, etc. are most welcome. Let's bring all the suggestions to the table and figure this out through brainstorming. Thank you.